All right. Hello, everyone out there in cyberspace and wherever you guys are at. Good to see everyone. I'm here with Jen Lawrence today, my guest host for today's webinar. We are talking about mindfulness amidst the madness. And so we're going to jump into that, do our normal kind of thing. So as we get started, wanted to first thank our sponsors. The League of Women in Government, who's an amazing partner, not just with Lance Strategies, but for everyone working in local government and anybody and everybody that cares about women's leadership and building up gender balance and inclusivity in executive levels of local government. They're an amazing, amazing resource. Another partner I want to recognize and thank is SGR. They do actually provide interim consulting and project management services. So you'll see a little blurb about that on the screen. But if you have a hole in your team at any point and you're looking to fill that gap, you need a little bit of help as you transition, they're an awesome resource for you as well, in addition to doing all the cool executive recruiting and training that they've done that we've talked about before. So if you don't know me or you're joining for the very first time, Nicole Lance, this is me on the screen in case the video wasn't enough for you. My background is in local government, spent almost 13 years doing that in Arizona, but my passion is really serving those who serve their communities. And that's what I get to do now professionally in my career as a consultant. So I work with local governments, some nonprofit, some private across the country, helping them do business better and helping individuals do business better and really tackle their goals through their own personal and professional development. So today we're going to follow our normal content first, Q&A after. So if you have Q&A in the GoToWebinar platform, just go ahead and enter your little question in there. We'll see it pop up, and then we'll go ahead and tackle that at the end of the webinar, but you can submit them anytime during the broadcast. So mindfulness amidst the madness, and this was a topic that was chosen a number of months ago, kind of looking at, like this time of year, understanding what normally starts to happen in November, and that pace kind of accelerates. And this morning, as like the baby was refusing to eat her breakfast, and the dog needed to be fed, and I forgot to get gas yesterday, and it happened to be raining, and I can't even spell umbrella, let alone know where one is in my house. Really kind of went, holy cow, this is perfect timing for this webinar. And everybody that I've been talking to lately is kind of revolving around this same thread of how can we slow down when we can't slow down? And so came with this idea of let's broadcast about being mindful amidst the madness and kind of how do we calm the chaos, but bringing Jen in, who's a productivity expert, productivity coach, to talk about how to actually prevent that from happening. So I like to joke and say she'll change your world in one webinar, but it's totally true. It's totally true. So very excited to have her join and share some tips. When I think of this time of year, this is what comes to mind. We are balancing so much, and it's kind of all being held together by this little thread that just sort of, one thing in any direction could tip it. And so how do we manage all of that, knowing that we can't necessarily make the load less, but could we carry it differently? Can we balance things a little differently so that it's not so stressful or such a difficult endeavor to get through? So I want to give you a couple strategies around this. So this is kind of calming the chaos when you're in it. And I'm going to hand it over to Jen, and she's going to talk about how do you actually prevent from getting there today. So we're going to talk about calming it, talk about preventing it. But first, I want to ask you a couple questions. Number one, if you have 97 other windows open on your screen right now, and you're texting, and you're eating lunch, and you're trying to listen in on another conference call, please narrow the scope, just even for the next couple of seconds, because I want to give you a presence of becoming more aware of what you are doing, how you're feeling. So first question, how are you breathing right now? Most of us, when we get into a chaotic state, it's really busy, there's a lot of demands, we're balancing all these things, we're thinking about the next 150 things on our to-do list. We begin to breathe shallowly, and that can actually accelerate our heart rate. It's going to make us have even less cognitive capacity to deal with what we need to deal with. So one, just become aware of how you're breathing. If you are breathing a little bit shallow, take a couple of deep breaths. You don't need to do anything crazy, but just take a couple of deep breaths and build some awareness around that. Number two, how are you sitting? Are you sitting in an uncomfortable position? Are your shoulders kind of pulled up? Are you holding tension in your face? Is your jaw clenched? just building some of that awareness, because a lot of times anxiety or that kind of chaos manifests in us physically, and that shows up in how we sit, even when we're not actually sitting across from a human being. So just build some awareness around that. Encourage you to kind of loosen up, get a little more comfortable, and just become aware of kind of, could you release some of that tension that you might be holding in your body? Number 3, how present are you? For my I can multitask people, this one's aimed at you. And I love you dearly, tribe members, but could you, for the duration of this webinar, even just for the next 15 minutes, really allow yourself to be present? Because one of the ways that chaos builds is we try to tackle too many things at once. And we try to be Wonder Woman saying, I can do it all. Well, guess what? Newsflash, we love you, but you can't. So allow yourself the gift of being really present here for the next just little bit of time that we're on this screen together. Okay, strategy number 1 for calming the chaos. Take a time out. And I say stop the spiral of death, but get real with yourself too. So the death spiral for me occurs when I'm going, and the very activity that has made me feel chaotic in the first place, I'm working hard, I'm taking on a lot. I use the same tactic to try and get out of it. Well, then I need to work twice as hard. Then I need to take on more because blah, 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 then we can get it all done and then I'll have space. Stop that. Take a time out, even if it's 3 minutes, set a timer if it makes you feel better about it. Take a couple deep breaths, stop the death spiral, and then get real with yourself. You have been here before, friends. You have been here before, and you have navigated this before. So that chaos, that frantic, that frenzy you're feeling, you have navigated this before. So get real with that in terms of, hey, I've done this. I actually do know how to navigate it. I can eliminate some of that frantic feeling that's sort of popping in. That's something that can help you even just feel less chaotic, which is going to help you actually handle the chaos better. Strategy number 2, create a plan of attack. And this seems simple. There's no super ultra magic here on this one. But one of the reasons life gets chaotic is because we don't stop to actually make a plan for how to handle it, because we're up to our eyeballs in it that we go next thing. This window won't load. I'm going to open a new window and do something else while that's loading, and then we forget to go back to the other window. I see you out there. I know this is happening.
I did that this morning.
Right? Right? We all do it. So create the plan of attack, but then secret sauce, actually work the plan. I have a tendency, and I've overcome it, and some days I don't. I revert of writing up this awesome to-do list. And then I go do 6 other things that weren't actually on the to-do list. And so I'm not actually following that plan. So take time out, build that actual plan, and then actually do the plan. Have that discipline to work through it, knowing and trusting that you've already prioritized it accordingly. Number 3, leverage your body and breath. I asked those couple check-in questions at the beginning. How are you breathing? How are you sitting? How present are you? Your own physical body and your breath can be assets for you in terms of how you're dealing with chaos. So a couple things around this. 1, box breathing. This is a super easy breathing strategy. It's a 4x4x4x4 breath. So you inhale for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and then pause for 4. Now, the reason I like a breathing technique, so I would say a little bit of structure goes a long way, because if you're like me, I do deep breathing and I go, oh, I forgot to switch the laundry over. I should have mailed that card to grandma. I didn't answer those 17 emails. What am I doing? I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be deep breathing and relaxing and being present. And then I do it the same way. So box breathing, 4x4x4x4, inhale, hold, exhale, pause before the next one is just a really simple structure. You can do it in front of other people. You don't need to like have an eye mask on or be in some crazy yoga pose to do it. That can lower your heart rate, bring down your stress level. Second one, pendiculate. Now, you are allowed to do this in public, turns out. Pendiculation is the thing that any animal with a spine does when we stretch, and it's that feeling of why it feels so good. You might yawn while you're doing it. That actually releases dopamine in your body. So there's a little bit of neuroscience behind that. And pendiculation can actually also bring your stress level down, which might not make the to-do list any less, but it's going to give you more capacity to deal with it. So if that looks good, or even just talking about yawning makes you want to do it, just indulge in that good stretch, get it in. It's actually going to release that dopamine, help you handle what's on your to-do list a little bit better. Okay, one last bonus tip, use this power phrase. We get into this time of year, it's chaos, and everybody says what? It's busy season. It's just busy. It's busy at work. It's busy at home. It's just a busy season. I say BS, use this instead. It's boundary season. This is an awesome time to practice boundaries, not just with other people, but the ones you set and enact for yourself. So use that phrase if that's helpful for you. But I've found when I use that, it lessens my guilt of saying no to commitments, or making priority choices, understanding that this is boundary season. Because if there's ever a time of year to have boundaries, this is probably it. Okay, so at this point, I want to hand it over to Jen, and she's going to rock your world with some of these 3 tips to prevent chaos.
Awesome, thank you. Quite the color change too.
Yes.
So I'm Jennifer Lawrence. I'm a productivity expert and coach, and I'm just going to give you 3 tips to prevent chaos before it happens. And it's never too late to implement these. So while you're trying to get on top of chaos that's driving you nuts, you can think of like, tomorrow I'm going to do this. So tip number 1 is consistently brain dump. Now, brain dumping is when you use a piece of paper or Word document, depending on what type of person you are, and you write out everything that's in your brain, like literally everything. And my favorite tip for this is, if your house is stressing you out, in your mind, walk through your house. Walk through the rooms and think about, okay, there's that pile of laundry over there, there's those dishes, there's that pile of mail I haven't done, there are those pictures I haven't ordered, etc., and put them on your list. It's same thing with work. Go through your calendar, your work week, and be like, okay, what all is taking up space? And the benefits to this is you're going to commit stray thoughts to paper, and you're going to release any of that brain stress of trying to remember, like how stressful it is trying to remember to do things. Yeah. So the other thing is, now you have a list. And talking about having a list and a plan, now you have a list, and now you can go through and kind of figure out where your priorities are and implement them. And my last tip for this is make it a habit. Do it every Friday before you walk out the door for work. That way you can put everything on paper from that work week. You don't have to think about it over the weekend. Every Sunday night, do it for your household, but make it a habit, something that you're doing consistently. Tip number 2. Now that you have a bunch of all these tasks,
right? Now my to-do list is bigger.
What do you do with the to-do list? You schedule them. This is my number 1 tip for productivity. Everybody has a calendar. Unfortunately, we all live and die by our calendar. It is our number 1 boss. So what you need to do now is you need to schedule your to-dos. And I actually mean schedule them. Make a calendar event in your calendar to set aside time to do the task. Because unless you're setting aside the time and energy, all you have is a want and a desire. So you need to make sure you have that time and energy to do it, and you're putting that time aside to accomplish things. So the benefits of this is you stop overcommitting all of your time and energy.
Guilty.
Guilty. As I look at Nicole. We all think that we can do 800 things in a 9-hour workday, but the reality is you really can't. The other thing is that we also frequently underestimate how much time something takes to get done. So this will help you figure out exactly how long it takes you to fill out that expense report, how long it takes you to go through your meeting notes and figure out all of your action items. It helps you figure out how much time you actually need to get things done. It also helps you prioritize and keep your word. When I was an executive assistant, this was one of my favorite tools to use, as people would stop me in the hallway and say, hey, by the way, I've got this task, can you help me out today? And you're face to face with this person and you're like, So what I would do is I would open up my calendar on my phone and I would say, you know what, I can do it today and I can have it to you by this time. Or you know what, I have a lot of priorities today. How about tomorrow I can get it to you before noon?
Oh, I love that.
So it becomes a super power tool. For 1, you can actually keep your word, but 2, you're also creating boundaries because you're enabling yourself to say no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And also it creates a record. So for those of us who need to do performance reviews at the end of the year, you can flip back through your calendar real quick and be like, oh man, I spent like 18 hours on that project and I was able to learn a new task and I was able to do this. And it seems super tedious if you're thinking at it now looking forward, right?
Sure. Sure.
Oh, I have to schedule all of my to-dos. But really, once you get into the habit of it, it's second nature and it's really beneficial at the end of the year. And then the last thing that I think a lot of people forget about is it eliminates decision-making procrastination. So if you don't know what your plan is for the day, you leave this open window for you to make a decision. And that's the last thing you need. is time to make a decision.
Right.
Because then you're like, oh, I could answer those emails, or, I could fold some laundry.
Right.
Or, I could go get that coffee and, put off writing that report until later.
And now I've wasted.
And now you've wasted all of this time.
Gotcha.
And so when you eliminate that time to make a decision, you eliminate waste. And what you're doing is you're basically bossing yourself around, right? The other thing to remember is with scheduling your to-dos, it also allows you to negotiate with yourself. Okay. So if something does come up and you are like, hey, I really need to get this done, what is the trade-off? And it puts you in the position of control to make the decision, as opposed to your boss threw something over the wall at you, or this team member that you really want to help out, or this person you kind of owe one to threw something over. Sure. You are in control of the decision to renegotiate that time and move things around. So it feels less blindsided.
I love that.
And more like you're just exchanging time and energy for something else. And again, make it a habit. Start today. Like, you've got the rest of the afternoon, most of you. You have the rest of the afternoon. What are you going to do today? Put it in your calendar.
Perfect.
All right. And tip number 3, I call the OneTouch Rule. And the OneTouch Rule is when you have emails flooding your inbox, you have mail piling up on your calendar, you have phone calls, you have voicemails, you are only going to touch it once. And you're going to make a decision to do, delegate, or delete. So what that means is, in that moment, can you do it? Can you just respond to the email, send it off, fire it off, be done? Can you delegate it to somebody else? Get out of your inbox. This isn't me. Mm-hmm. Or delegate it to yourself later. So if the email requires more effort from you, it is now a task. If it requires you to edit a PowerPoint, if it requires you to pull up an agenda, if it requires you to flip back through and find that file that you put in a folder but you can't find it right now, that is now a task. That is something you have to come back to. So you're going to delegate it to yourself, and guess what? You're going to schedule it in your calendar.
Right, because that's a habit.
Because it is a habit. Or delete it. Like, get it out of your inbox, get it out of your face. If you're one of those people who has 15,000 emails in your inbox, it makes me want to cry because that alone, the existence of all of those emails is causing overwhelm.
Yeah, it's like brain clutter.
The whole inbox zero is not a pipe dream. This is something that you can actually achieve by getting things out of your face. The other part of deleting is, if you find that you're deleting the same email over and over and over again, it's time to unsubscribe. It's time to unsubscribe.
Also guilty.
Don't mark it as spam, because you're really doing a disservice to whoever's on the other end of it.
Yeah.
But it's time to unsubscribe. And a trick is, if you are on a distribution list within your company and you are constantly being on those emails that you don't need to be on, see if you can contact the owner of the distribution list and get off of it.
Okay. Give yourself permission.
Give yourself permission to say,
unsubscribe.
This is too much. And sometimes you can't. I know I was in a very, very large corporate environment, and I was on a ton of DLs, a ton of them. And 90% of them I didn't need. Okay. Set up a rule in your inbox to just tuck those away into a folder. And if you want to go through and scan through them later, do that, but get them out of your face.
Okay.
All right. So of course, the benefits of this is it's going to prevent the pile before it starts.
Yeah.
If you are touching things once and getting it out of the way, no pile exists. And it really does convert any of that chaos to control. Yeah. Because you are taking action every single time you see something, hear something. Just get it done, out of your face. And again, make it a habit,
I feel like I need to do this with my laundry.
Yes.
Like, either just do it and put it away, delegate it. Hopefully my husband won't mind that very much. Or just delete it, which is actually Marie Kondoing
Kondo your house.
My house. That's what I need to do.
But this is a great point too. If you're one of those people who you use the dishwasher, right? You throw everything into the dishwasher, you clean it, you're feeling good about yourself, right? And then you need a fork. What do you do, Nicole?
I get it out of the dishwasher.
And then you close that door, right?
Oh yeah, and then I put the dirty one in the sink.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Because there's no room in the dishwasher.
Because there's no room, the dishwasher's clean. So the reality is, it's going to take you 2 minutes to empty that dishwasher.
Yeah.
Emptying a dishwasher does not take 30 minutes.
Right.
So when you need to take that fork out, the one touch is
doing
empty the whole thing. Just empty the whole thing. And of course, you don't have to be perfect. You just need to be sufficiently better. Yeah. So every time you go into it, think, can I do this in 2 minutes flat?
Yep.
and just do it, because chances are you can. So
Yeah.
that's the OneTouch rule.
I love it.
All right. So that's all I have for you. So
All
this
right.
is my contact page if anybody wants to get in touch with me. Like I said, I'm an productivity expert and productivity coach, and all of my information is there. I'm very active on Instagram if you want to pop by and see all of my fun behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, just get some cool videos too. So take a picture of that, or reach out to me, connect that way as well. So, okay, so we're gonna move on to the Q&A portion of the webinar. So I know we've got a couple that have popped through. If you have any, go ahead and feel free to submit them now. We've got one question. Do either of you have a favorite app on your phone to help manage your tasks? My favorite app on my phone to help manage my tasks is Jen's phone number. And then I text her and ask for help. So it's probably a better question for Jen to answer.
I'm a big fan of not inundating your life with apps. And there's a reason for this. And it's actually one of my top productivity topics that I talk to a lot of people about is there's too many options out there, right?
Yeah.
And they all kind of do the same thing. So if you find a tool that you really like, something like Trello, Asana, Wunderlist, we've used Monday.com, which is really robust. There's a caveat with that one. Or, you know, the iPhone app reminders, Google has a task list. So kind of if you're going to dive into an app on your phone to help manage tasks, use one that already integrates with the systems you're using. Like Outlook has its own task management as well. I would say my favorite app of all time to manage my tasks is actually my calendar, because I do schedule all of my to-dos. And to give you additional insight into what I actually do, I actually keep a physical to-do list. I know, shocking, like everybody's like, what if you lose the paper? But I keep a physical to-do list, and then I schedule my time in my calendar. And for me, that works really well because my calendar is what I live and die by. But if you are intent on finding an app, like I said, make sure it integrates with a system you're already using, and really dig into learning how Google Calendar and Google Tasks work together, and Outlook Calendar and Outlook Task go together. Because what happens is you can turn an email into a task and put it on your calendar. So something to consider.
Okay, next question. What if your calendar is already full, which includes meetings? Sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing this one. Whoop. Which includes meetings. How can you input
a task list without
seeing the calendar? How can you input? I don't see why that's. Sorry, my computer's layout's kind of funny. How can you input task list without seeing the calendar so overwhelming already?
I love this question. Okay, so the number one trick for your calendar is to create multiple calendars, whether you have Outlook, iCalendar, Google Calendar, Yahoo, they all have this function where you can add an additional calendar within your existing calendar, right? So you have your main calendar, and then you can kind of parse things out. So you can create a new one that says tasks. And in fact, Google already has this integrated. So if you're living in a Google world, you just have to like turn it on in your settings and it'll create a task calendar for you. But if you're in Outlook, you can right click, create a task calendar. And so you can toggle it on and off.
Right.
So you can only, if you need to just see, okay, what meetings do I have today? You can just see the meetings, but then you can toggle on and off your tasks. The other thing is, if your calendar is really full of meetings, it's really important for you to be scheduling your tasks. Because if you're going from meeting to meeting to meeting, it means you're not getting the work done.
Right.
And so by being able to put in your tasks in between the meetings, you know how much work time you actually have. And if you don't do that, then you're probably the person who's sitting at your desk till 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah. So one of the other things I've learned from Jen, as she's done some coaching with me too, is the importance of color coding your calendar, because the way I used to calendar was, you know, I had all the meetings and whatever, there's no time. And then I would start putting in the doctor's appointment and the phone call. And then I started scheduling my tasks, and I'm like, okay. And now all of a sudden I'm like, holy cow, it's blue everywhere. I have no time, you know, when am I going to go to the bathroom? I need to
drowning in the ocean of blue.
Yeah. And so we worked on color coding the calendar, and that helps you visually reduce some of that chaos, because sometimes you look at that calendar and you see everything in blue and you're like, holy cow, I don't even have time to walk between meetings. let alone actually have space for all of that. So that's been a really like life-changing, like I said, change your world in one webinar. That really did, because that used to be something that caused a lot of chaos for me, was just the visual representation of the calendar. The other thing, if you can expand, and there's another question over here about the overcomplicating things, making it more chaotic than it needs to be. But sometimes there really is just a massive to-do list. To that question, your calendar already has a ton of meetings on it. How do you deal with it when it seems like there really just is more to do than you have time for?
Right, absolutely. And especially around this time of year, a lot of us are at the end of the year, right? So we have all sorts of things pulling at us, plus the holidays and the fun stuff. And so the reality is you may just have a lot to do. That's the reality of it. And so the tip for that is try to figure out where you can batch your work. One of my favorite analogies of this actually goes back to housework. You don't wash one t-shirt at a time, right? You put all of your clothes into a laundry basket and you wash them. And so you're actually batching your work already. Or if you're that person who's like, all right, I'm going to go out and run errands, and I'm going to hit Target, and I got to go to the bank, then I'm going to go to the grocery store, and then I'm going to go back to Target because I didn't spend enough money at Target, and then I have to go to Costco. And so you're already batching your work because you're like, I'm going out, do it all at one time. So if you are working in a certain program, say you work in finance and there's a certain software that you need to use, and sometimes it's a pain to load up, or you're in graphic design and Adobe's super slow that day, if you are batching your work, you're also optimizing your startup and shutdown time. So you're kind of putting everything in a nice little shell. And that will help you manage all of your stuff because you're not shifting gears all the time. So when I work with my clients, I work with them in huge chunks of time, and I get like 15 things done in like an hour and a half because I'm in the zone. I'm in their area and I can get things done. So that's something to think about too, is batching your work.
Okay, I love that. And that really helped me when we talked about your startup time and your wind down time. So the amount of time I had to like open the email, go through, reset, blah, blah, blah. Then I'm checking my phone, then I'm running an errand, or then I'm going out to get, and I found so much found time because I wasn't wasting it starting the next thing, getting that thing going, or, getting the clothes out of the hamper and walking it down to the laundry, like get that kind of all ready to go. So super, super helpful. One last question that came through, want to talk to that, just speak to that real quick, couple of quick tips for you. I like the idea of being mindful during this time of year. It always seems to move so fast. How can I stay more mindful when everything is moving so quickly and there are so many commitments to manage? This one is hard because it's easy to just get swept up in the busy, and at the end of it, you're like Bill and Ted from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and you're like, whoa, like what just happened? That feeling. If you're driving to work and you don't remember getting there, that's a lack of presence. So a couple of just quick tips around that. The ones that we did earlier, the breathing exercises will help. Remembering to budget in time for self-care. So self-care is your superpower, but do it in micro bursts. Micro bursts become your best friend this time of year of, okay, I need a minute to breathe. I need 5 minutes to call my best friend, or indulge in that, mindless Twitter scrolling or Instagram, whatever it is for you. The other one is to notice what you're noticing. If there's something, and what I mean by this is if there's something that's catching your attention, you notice, man, my shoulder's sore again, my back is tight again, I'm not sleeping again, or I keep having this like desire to go grab that really indulgent cup of pumpkin cream cold brew at Starbucks, hypothetically speaking, if you're me, and go sit and read, even just for 10 minutes. And then you push that away because you say, I'm too busy, I have too much to do, there's too much whatever. Consistently saying no or ignoring all of those things is going to lead to kind of this buildup. And I think of it as like our cosmic backpack that we carry around. And when that backpack is so full of all that stuff, we don't have capacity to carry anything else. So notice what you're noticing, and then employ those little micro bursts of paying attention to them and building in some of that self-care during the season. Okay, so I want to get you back to work. on time. Thank you for everybody that submitted questions today. Just that one quick reminder on SGR as an amazing resource if you're looking for a team member to help fill a gap. They provide that interim assistant service, but they also do consulting and project management services. So it's a really potentially powerful resource for you. And next, coming up in December 12th, we'll have Extending Your Influence. Something I like to wrap the year on this because it's easy at that point of the year. We're already thinking about 2020. We're already thinking ahead. And what I'd like you to do is end 2019 feeling really empowered as you move into 2020 for what you need to navigate and what's on your plate. So hope you got Jen's contact info. If not, there's mine. Let's please make sure we connect online, and then we'll see you on December 12th. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.